One of the signature features of Bernas Estocadas, especially when you're watching a video of someone doing carranza in the system, is its multi-directional movement. In this video, I'm going to explain what I'm calling the geometry of Bernas Estocadas, or the geometric patterns of footwork that are used within the system to be able to truly move freely in multiple directions against multiple opponents. To do that, I'll be talking about the various types of form work done in the system and the stages of progression in developing that free, fluid and multi-directional movement. That is a signature characteristic of the Bernas Estocadas system. I'd like to start by talking about palakat, the fundamental footwork of the system that builds its multi-directional capabilities. Arguably, the most common way footwork is talked about in Filipino martial arts is in terms of triangles. However, in Bernas Estocadas, rather than the triangle, it is the asterisk, or the estrella, a star-shaped pattern, that forms the basis of the movement. The star pattern makes clear that wherever the practitioner is, there is always 8 possible directions of movement. With the star-shaped pattern in mind, the practitioner of Bernas Estocadas can advance diagonally to the left, straight forward, or to the right. They can move laterally to the right. They can retreat diagonally to the right. They can retreat straight back. They can retreat diagonally to the left, or move laterally to the left. No matter which direction the practitioner has chosen to move, they now become the centre of a new asterisk. Of course, the total directional possibilities will always be limited by where your opponent is in relation to you at any point in the combative encounter. However, once you've moved with that asterisk movement, while some of the options might be blocked by an opponent, you'll still have multiple directions in which you can move. So the asterisk really trains the idea of multi-directional movement right at the fundamental level of the art. For those who have read Bernas Estocadas Volume 1 Abecedario, they'll be familiar with this diagram of the standard template, the fundamental footwork template of Bernas Estocadas that's used in many of the basic drills such as pares pares. When this template is used, the practitioner initially moves laterally to a 4 count before advancing for a 2 count and then retreating for a 2 count. Importantly, from the very beginning of Bernas Estocadas, students are learning how to strike and defend while both advancing and retreating. And this template introduces some of the fundamental maneuvers that are then utilised in the Dagway, the forms of Bernas Estocadas that I'll look to now. The Dagway, or forms of Bernas Estocadas, are the fundamental way of teaching multi-directional movement. These forms aren't simply catalogues of techniques, like you might see in some systems. In fact, these forms utilise the fundamental offensa, striking techniques, and defensa, defensive techniques, over and over again, that have already been learnt through drills such as pares pares. The changing directions within the forms isn't simply about giving people the opportunity to practice reps of the fundamental striking and blocking techniques. Fundamentally, what these forms do is teach you how to strike and block in a multi-directional fashion, as if fighting multiple opponents. The first 2 of these forms build the footwork that is attached to each of the 12 blocks and strikes, bring them together into a continuous sequence. The movement in these first 2 forms is linear. The students advance, turn, and then advance back to where they started. The next 2 fundamental forms work in a cross pattern and develop the fundamental multi-directionality of the system. Experience levels, the patterns become more varied and are really limited by your imagination. So we have a T pattern, a inverted T pattern, an I pattern, and it's even possible to operate in an H pattern. All of them are designed to get you moving freely and fluidly in multiple directions. Now let's look at Dagway 1 from above. In Dagway 1, the practitioner advances while striking in a linear fashion. You notice the characteristic rocking from side to side in many of the strikes. So here we see all 12 strikes put together in a linear sequence. Now in Dagway 2, we again move in that same linear fashion, advancing with the depensa, the blocking techniques. And you'll see this characteristic side to side shifting. After the 12th strike is blocked, the practitioner turns and repeats the same process, coming back in the opposite direction. We've shot those forms from above so that you can see the pattern of the footwork. Now this becomes more obvious if we shift to Dagway 3. In Dagway 3, the opensa are practiced in the T-shaped pattern. So every time we move, we strike a different with a different opensa in a different direction. You can see the pattern here. So you notice the pattern is a 180-degree movement, followed by a 90-degree movement, back to 180, back to 90, all the way through.